My mom's mom died when she was 6 months old, and so she went to go live with her grandma and her dad, and so her aunt was 15 when she moved in. And so they shared a room. My mom was 1, my aunt was 15, until she got married. So this is she's here in spirit. So when I call your name or say your thing, please just raise your hand. So next in line is Jan and Dee Page. Jan is Dad's sister, brother-in-law. Just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. Next in line is Jamie and Barbara Alcorn. Jamie went to elementary school with Dad. And he actually referred Dad to his first job at Rock Rise and Associates. So, which led the path for everything. It's all thanks to Jamie. Jean Brandenburger over here, longtime family friend and good friend of Mom and Dad's. Jean's husband was a colleague with Dad and worked at Rock Rise way back in the beginning, and they are our Sun Valley connection. When you hear us go to Sun Valley, it's to stay and visit at their beautiful home in Sun Valley. One of Mom and Dad's favorite place. Next in line, I'm not sure, there he is, Ron Portwood. He was a friend since Mom and Dad got married. So there's a picture of Mom and Dad getting into their car in their, I guess after they were married because they were together. In the back of the picture, in the corner of the window, is Uncle Rom and Aunt Tad looking out the window to see what's going on out in front. So when Dad found the property up on the hill, couldn't afford the whole thing, so he split it up, and Uncle Rom and Aunt Tad got the second one down, third one down. So they've lived on Drury Lane and still live on Drury Lane. Next is Lisa and Lori Quigley. Over there and on this side. So everyone who knows me always hears me say, I'm gonna go hang out with my cousins. They're not my cousins, but that's who I'm referring to.
They are second cousins.
Well, yeah, but not my cousins' cousins. So they're not technically my cousins, but we just make it easier. And that's why it made me laugh when I was looking up what everybody's connection was, because some of them sound formal, like they are second cousin once removed, but they happen to be my best friends as well. So it's a funny connection. And how that all happened is Lisa and Lori's dad was my dad's best friend. And I need some water. And he married Dad's cousin. Oh, thank you, Kyle. And so that's how we're all family and friends and all together. Val Saldana is Lori's husband over there. Avid golfer, wine lover, and all-around fun guy we love to hang out with. Next in line are Amy, Marty, and Rami Portwood. We're all over there. They're all Drury Lane neighbors since day one. So then my real cousins, Shannon and Bob Page, they're always up for a good adventure, and we've really enjoyed these fun weekends that we've had together. Laura Warren Page is Shannon's wife, and we've gone again on these great weekend hikes. She's the best person to have around. She's always prepared, whether you come across a bear or moonstones searching on the beach. So she's the one you want to be with. Next is Linda Stanton Ross over there in the back. I met her when we transferred from Kaiser Elementary to Montclair Elementary, so 6th grade all the way through college. We lived together almost until we got married. So Matt should actually be the last on the list because I met him today. But, although I feel like I've known him for quite a while. So thank you for coming today. And okay, Ava, where's Ava? Ava is a longtime AIA connection with Dad, and they have spent so many hours. Sounds like I'm crying, but I'm. That'll be later. They spent so much time at AIA things together. Boris Boris Dramov and Bonnie Fisher, they're back there. They're partners at Roma with Dad. I have one funny story about Boris. Since I worked there in the summer, and Boris needed to go somewhere, and it was my job to take him, and I had just learned how to drive a stick, and he had, it was like a Golf or something, and the clutch was so loose in San Francisco with my dad's partner in the car. You know, we're like, I think there's still clutch parts all over San Francisco.
You were a great
John and Maydale Stafford over here, they were Roma people also. They lived in the East Bay, and I am sure that John did not have carpooling with an 18-year-old every day for the summer in his bingo car. But we laughed a lot, I remember, on those ways into work. Michael and Maureen Stanton were over there. And Michael is a longtime AIA architect colleague of Dad's. They went to the Armenian earthquake together way back when to figure out the relief, and have been friends throughout AIA for all those years. Hartmut Gerdes, I'm sorry if there he is. He was worked at Roma also with Dad, and so longtime colleague. Chris and May Kanazawa, they got the award for coming the farthest. They came from Hawaii. Chris worked on a ton of projects with Dad when Chris was at Castle and Cook, and so always enjoyed spending time together. Unfortunately, the last couple times we missed each other, but always good friends and always lovely things to say. Eileen, where's Eileen? Fogarty, also a colleague of Dad's. She's been a city planner in Santa Cruz, Alexandria, and Santa Monica, and Dad worked with her in all those places. And I got to work with her in the last two. Okay. Where am I now? Did that one? Oh, you know, my printing's, oh, here we go, that's why. Okay, Peter Brandenburger is Jean's son, and the poor guy said one of the cutest things that Mom ever remembered when he was like 2, we went camping and at a lake, and he would say, I want to go fishing. I want to go fishing. Probably the last time you saw her, she said that to you. Yeah. Yeah. Never let it go. And the talk about the casserole at the Eclipsa, she always says too. Till the very end. Oli Shank is a high school friend of mine, as well as married to Marty for 1,000 years. Jeff Bigelow and Tracy are friends from high school. Jeff and his brother were 2 of my favorite guys at high school, and I'm so happy that we've remained in contact. All right, so Amy Malis, Margot Ludwig, Lauren Latimer, and Gabrielle Tierney are sorority sisters of mine. We all pledged in the fall of 1980. Yeah, yeah, and had a good time, a good time. Eric Bindelas has put up with all of us for all these times. He's a Yale grad too, yay, and we've gotten together in Sun Valley, LA, San Francisco. It's been great. Okay, we're getting down the list. Greg Edlin, Tom Priest, and Rob Sultanen, and wives. They are friends of Kyle's from high school. So it's not longer. I wasn't sure about if it was longer than that.
No.
I realized, I don't know where you went to middle school, Kyle.
Montero.
Oh, okay. I was like, of all the things I was looking up, I didn't know that. Okay, or I didn't remember. Sally DiMaria, there. And she was a good friend of Mom's, and her husband Steve had Parkinson's, so they went on the journey together, lost the journey, still dry, not crying. Almost the same time, but really shared a lot. And she made my dad's favorite thing, chocolate sauce. Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, Cynthia McMillan, again, a longtime friend. Was it through Junior League that you guys were friends with Mom?
Well, I think it was before that.
Oh, so a long time
But
friend.
also with your dad, because I wish I could find the picture. he and my former husband were standing in Fallen Leaf Lake.
Oh,
in
yes.
A boathouse that was stone, because
Yep.
we bought a stone
I remember
house.
that house.
And they are digging out the boathouse, because the boat we had was bigger than the boathouse. And it's just a great picture of your dad.
Awesome. Yeah, those were good times.
Yes, they were.
Okay, now we're getting to the pride and joy of my parents. We have Kendall Jane Odermatt, granddaughter number 1. Olivia Margaret Lee, granddaughter number 2. Ian James Odermatt, the favorite grandson. Isabella Hampton Lee, granddaughter number 3. We have McKenna Quigley Harrington. Lisa is my cousin's daughter, but we refer to her as my niece because it's easier. She is our family actress. You might see her starring in Tulsa King on Sunday nights, along with Sylvester Stallone, Samuel Jackson. Yes, I name dropped. You can see her Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Paramount Plus, $15.99 per month. Follow her on Instagram. Griffin Harrington, my nephew, and our own king of New York. He plans and participates in everything New York has to offer. Joey Saldana, where is he? Over there. He is Val's son, all around Captain Fun, and interpreter between my generation and the kids when they don't know what they're talking about. Allie Warren is Laura's daughter, and often a participant in our weekends away, which are so fun. And Russ Warren Page up here, his love of Halloween outshines even Isabella's. I'm not sure what it's called, what Belle does for work, but she makes Halloween haunts and environments for scary mazes and amusement rides and stuff. Russ does the same thing in his spare time at his own home. He has a warehouse of life-size creatures and things that he fixes up and enhances and creates this incredible haunted house that the news comes to every year. And last but not least are Sasha Hoban and Kate Harrison. This might make me cry. My daughter's partners and the kindest, most thoughtful 20-something-year-old men that I've ever met. So, thank you for coming. Okay, so now we're going to get to the real deal. All right, welcome everyone. When thinking about us gathering today, I shared my cousin's thought that she said, you know, it's kind of weird to say this, but I'm really looking forward to this. And my response was immediate. It was like, me too. The only thing missing is mom and dad. And that's really how I feel about this. Through these last several months since they left us, I very much feel that they are with us and smiling down. Kyle's family and mine skipped Christmas this year and went to Hawaii to a house we all stayed in together. It was perfect because they were with us the whole time, just as they are right now. Our hope for today was to share in funny, happy, touching memories that they shared with all of us. As I've been planning today and thinking how it would unfold, my thoughts turned to one of my other favorite people, Mike Moretti, who knew he was dying, but he had very specific rules when you hung out with him, and I would do my best to adhere to it. After he actually had passed, it was crystal clear that he had the right approach. So today we are going with all beers, no tears. So I can't promise it, but I'm going to do my best. I'm not sure how to approach today because I could stand here for 10 minutes and talk about the incredible professional achievements and recognition that both mom and dad received. But that isn't the way that I remember them or what I knew them for. It was what led them to successful careers, but it's not the foundation that I remember the most. Mom was amazing. She could make anything. And even more amazing was it was pre-internet, pre-YouTube, just her own resources. Every Christmas she would find an ornament for us to make with yarn and beeswax and all kinds of stuff. And at Easter we actually made those hard sugar eggs that you look into, the little seam. Not only did she do it with Kyle and me pre-internet and Amazon, she did it with my girls 40 years later. Fortunately, we made some for my grandma, and she still had them as ours didn't make it through the fire. She could sew anything. There was one time, the three of us, I was working as a graphic designer, Kyle was working for an architect, and Dad is an architect, And we talked about being able to draw, who could draw an inch line the most exact. We all thought, you know, we had this nailed. We all went, Dad's like, I'm gonna kick ass, I could do it. Mom did it, hers was perfect, ours were all off. So, she was amazing. So she made our Halloween costumes, you know, no toxic fume plastic face masks for us back in the 60s. She taught my brownie troupe how to sew aprons and ultimately to me how to sew. Never as well as she could, but I can get through almost any pattern now. And funny enough, I remember calling home on one October 28th, scolding her for teaching me how to sew. Why, Mom, why? If I didn't know how to sew, I'd be in Spirit Halloween in 30 minutes, $20 later, but no. I have spent $80, 160 hours making a ladybug princess dress. I happened to be on the speakerphone and I could hear Dad laughing in the background, to which I snapped, "You're not off the hook either. I don't know many women, young women my age, who like putting their own baseboards on and fixing their own toilets. I really should report both of you to Child Protective Services." My mom actually made my wedding veil. For those who don't remember it, it was cathedral length. I wanted Lady Di length, and Mom's like, get over yourself. And it had flower petals that draped down the end. So at the time, it was $300, and I was like, that is outrageous, I'm not paying that. Yeah, no, especially since she splurged on the dress, because she'd gone back to work to be able to pay for this stuff. She's like, don't tell Dad, don't tell Dad. So Mom said she could make it. Well, apparently the petals were harder to make than she thought. Making them look like petals instead of polka dots was challenging. So Mom had to get Dad on her side and help her out. Together they cut, curled, baked these little petals wrapped around pencils, attached them to the veil, which was draped all over the house. And while I never saw it, it's one of my fondest memories thinking of them working on this together. When I was growing up, Dad worked in Oregon during the week, so we missed a lot of open houses, back to school nights. But to my mom's credit, it never felt like he missed out. I felt like he was always there. Still dry, not crying. I always felt he was there. He would call, and I remember her saying, Bob, tell him that you love him. The coolest thing about Dad is he didn't need to say it, and he expressed it so much with words. All ears, no tears. It was fascinating to hear the shared thoughts from their friends of just 4 years ago 4 years in Montecedro, as it was from Dad's colleagues for many, many years, because they were so much the same. They all said, Bob didn't say much, but when he did, it was really important and you really wanted to hear what it was. Which was so endearing and so spot on, it made me think of a funny interaction with him and my grandma and grandpa. We were gathered at Drury Lane for somebody's birthday, and my grandma had made her famous sour cream chocolate cake, which she'd been making for decades, literally decades. And so my grandpa, who was even more quiet than my dad, all of a sudden said, I don't really like that cake. To which we were all aghast and shocked because he'd been eating it for 20 plus years. And then my dad piped up, yeah, me neither. To which my grandma, if you know my grandma, was just all aflutter. And we thought it was so funny, we've talked about it and laughed about it for many years. So I was a design major at UCLA, and my first summer home, I went to work for Roma. And one of the memories that I have that will last my entire life was on a Friday, there was an all-staff meeting. I'd worked there for several weeks and was on the softball team, so I'd had the opportunity to meet everybody and form my own relationships with them. At the meeting, I was sitting in the back corner, and Dad was speaking. I thought to myself, what is going on? Why is everyone looking at him like that? They're all listening so intently. There was a reference that I'll never forget. I looked at Dad and he looked different. I was like, this wasn't the dad taking a swipe of butter on a knife, salting it, and then eating it off the knife. This wasn't the dad holding Mom off with one arm while holding the cookie dough bowl for Kyle and I to go dig in on the other side. Or the guy in his sweatpants with his hair sticking up doing bills while watching Wide World of Sports auto racing. Who is this guy? Well, I was fortunate enough to spend time with this other guy too. I got to work with Dad on several projects in Alexandria, Hawaii, and Santa Monica. There's a funny story about Dad working in Santa Monica, and Eileen can probably speak to it more specifically, but they were trying to figure out how to get the metro from downtown to Santa Monica. And because they wanted Santa Monica to be a no-car residential city. The powers didn't, so Dad felt there should be a station halfway in between downtown and the ocean. So he kept drawing a station in on 17th Street. Well, then the powers be would take it out. He'd revise it, he'd put it back in. They'd take it out. He'd put it back in. And as you can imagine, the 17th Street station is now a secondary retail hub in Santa Monica. A similar circumstance occurred at Montecedro, and of course, as soon as Dad moved in, he became part of the planning committee. And they were in the early stages of building the second phase to the project across an alleyway from the existing buildings. Dad suggested a closed pedestrian bridge to link the two buildings. These are 80-year-olds with walkers. They kept saying no. He kept suggesting. They kept saying no. He kept suggesting. And at the gathering they had for him at Montecedro, where residents share their memories and stuff, so many people said they are gonna regret not putting that bridge in. So, in closing, I will say, in so many ways, things feel the same to me. As I was living my life as a single person, starting my own business, getting married, becoming a mom, becoming an empty nester, to a semi-retired person, Mom and Dad were always with me. I still feel that it hits me every so often that I can't follow up with a phone call, but then I remember that I don't need one because they already know. So, thank you, everybody.
Wow.
I don't think I'm going to make it without the tears. Oh, we'll try. We'll give it a go. I'm going to start off by saying that what many of you already know, I'm not as entertaining as my sister. Hearing Christy always makes me think of what an amazing storyteller and entertainer she is. So, and you brought back so many memories that are so vivid. So, thanks for that. Before I do make my remarks, there's one small thing we would ask of all of you today. Today is something we're sharing here together in this room. We'd prefer to keep it that way and not have it live on social media. Being here in person, sharing these memories, that's what's special, and we think it's really more than enough. Thank you for not posting about today. When I thought about what I wanted to say about my parents, I kept coming back to one idea. What they gave us wasn't just a childhood, it was a way of living. A set of values, habits, and passions that they passed down, not just by telling us, but by showing us every day. And what means even more to me now is seeing how those same lessons didn't stop with us. They carried forward into our lives, into our kids, into our relationships, into all of you. They carried forward into moments that we'll always remember. One of the strongest threads running through my childhood was the idea of creating. You heard Christy talk about it a lot, of making something with your hands, of building, of figuring things out. Our youth was filled with it. Our house itself was proof of that. It wasn't just a house, it was a home they designed, built, and continuously improved over the years, culminating with the opportunity to create a completely new version after the fire. There was always something being worked on. I spent so many hours alongside my dad as he was building or rebuilding something around the house. And what I realize now is that I wasn't just learning how to use tools, I was learning how to think. How to approach a problem, how to keep going when something didn't work the first time, and there were many of those times. As Christy said, this was before YouTube showed you how to do everything perfectly the first time. Over time, I began to see that this didn't start with them. They'd learned it from their parents. I used to love going into my grandfather's workshop in Castro Valley. It felt like this magical place, curious tools everywhere, things taking shape. For those that don't know, he was a sheet metal craftsman at Lawrence Livermore Lab. And there was this sense that he could make or fix anything. Today, I still have some of his tools in my garage, and I know that Kendall covets them. That through line from him to my dad to the next generation is still there. There's one memory that really captures this passing of knowledge for me, a school project, a 1/3 scale model of a medieval cannon. As Christy said, my dad was spending long stretches in Portland working, and so it fell to my mom and me to get this project done. There were a lot of phone calls back and forth, a lot of guessing, a lot of figuring things out as we went, but Mom and I made it happen. And what stayed with me wasn't the project itself. It was the lesson behind it. You can always figure something out. It might take a few tries, it might not be perfect at first, but if you stick with it, you'll get there. That belief has shaped so much of who I am. My parents also taught us what it meant to work hard. As kids, you don't fully understand what's happening behind the scenes. You just know that your dad is away a lot and your mom is always there holding everything together. Later, you begin to understand what that really meant. My dad was a partner in a medium-sized architectural firm, and that came with real demands and sacrifices. And while he was carrying that responsibility, my mom was carrying so much of the weight at home, raising us, supporting us, making sure everything kept moving forward. There was a quiet partnership in that, a shared commitment. And over time, you realize that achieving anything meaningful requires that kind of investment, of time, of energy, of sacrifice. That lesson stays with you. My parents also showed us how to bring people together. Despite the, let's call it, challenging parking situation and the perilous drive up the hill, 39 Drury Lane was a place where people frequently gathered. A place where parties happened. And yes, my sister and I tested that theory a few times as teenagers when they were out of town. But when they hosted something, it was special. Every detail was thought through, every effort was made to make people feel welcome, comfortable, and like they were part of a special group. And again, that didn't start with them. I've heard so many stories about gatherings in my grandparents' basement, full of life, full of people, and full of joy. That spirit carried forward into our home and into so many of the memories we all share. There was a famous annual family Christmas party. The countless gatherings with friends and extended family, so many moments that felt standard but were actually built with care and intention. They also showed us what it means to be a good friend. They had incredible ability to form deep, lasting friendships and to carry them through every phase of life. Many of those friends are here today, some unable to be here except in spirit, and yet others we hold in our memories. And what really stands out to me is that they didn't just hold on to old friendships, they kept making new ones. With every new chapter, they built new connections without letting go of the old ones. When they moved to Southern California in 2020, they did it again. A new place, new surroundings, and before long, a great new circle of friends. Regular gatherings, shared experiences, laughter, it brought them so much joy. And for us, that chapter was a gift. It gave us time with them that we might not have had otherwise, time that we now treasure and can't imagine any differently. Additionally, I think of particular passions, the things that made life exciting. For me, one of my biggest passions is a love for cars. That came straight from my dad. You'll hear more about how long that's existed for him later on. One of my earliest memories is sitting on his lap, hands on the steering wheel of his green 914, inching our way toward Laguna Seca Racetrack in Monterey for the 1973 Can-Am race. It's one of my few clear memories from my youth. I can still remember the car that won that day, a Porsche that remains to this day my favorite race car of all time. We went to so many race venues together over the years. Monterey, Phoenix for our first Formula One race in 1991. Now we have a F1 group chat amongst the family. All the kids are joining in, or most. At one point, we even did a racing school together at Sonoma Raceway, an experience I'll never forget. And what's so meaningful to me now is that this passion didn't stop there. Like the others, it carried forward. Ian and I, and Jason as well, are still living that passion. We race go-karts together in a monthly league night. Kendall's been out on track with us, and we're looking forward to getting the rest of the crew out when they're back in Southern California. And I also have to add, just as a proud dad, Ian's currently leading the championship. I was bummed when he got faster than me, but I'm also happy for him. That through line from my parents to me and Chris to our kids is still going strong in other areas that I'm passionate about as well, technology and design. Our dad always had the latest gadget, the latest computer, and as I got older, that shared passion opened doors for me. I had the chance to work with advanced computer-aided design systems at Roma Design Group growing up and see firsthand how a design studio operated. That experience truly shaped my path. It helped me realize that I can combine my love of design with my passion for cars. That realization took me to Los Angeles, to a specialized program in car design, and eventually into working with the kinds of high-end digital tools used in both automotive design and visual effects. That's turned into a 33-year career in visual effects and animation, and that all traces back. It really traces back to those early exposures, to curiosity, to creativity, to being encouraged to explore what excited me. That's the thing about what they gave us. It wasn't instruction, it was example. It was enthusiasm, it was showing us what it looks like to care deeply about something and to pursue it fully. I feel incredibly fortunate to have had that. And I feel even more grateful seeing those same values continue into the next generation. They weren't just amazing parents, mom and dad were incredible grandparents. The love they gave did not stop with us, it kept moving forward. That's their legacy. It lives in the things we make and the way we work and how we bring people together, in the friendships we hold on to, in the passions we carry forward. It lives in all of us. So, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Olivia. This is my sister, Isabella. I am a huge crier, so I knew I wouldn't be able to get through a full speech. So what I did instead was I made a list of all of the things in everyday life that remind me of my grandparents. And so some of these came from my cousins and my family. So I thought I would share them with you guys, and maybe they mean something to you as well. And there's a lot of them are silly. So the first one on the list is Dibs, the little ice cream balls that my grandma loved. Tiny mini muffins, specifically the ones from Costco. Harry and David pears that we always got in December from my grandma and grandpa. The tin or the big bucket of Trader Joe's mini chocolate chip cookies. Danielle Balude, cheese fondue, apples to apples, sorry, categories in Domino's.
You can do it, all beers, no tears.
Yeah, the one that's holding me up is tiny frozen bottles of water that my grandma would always give us before getting in the car. A jacket or a shawl in case you were cold. I have one on right now. Pearl earrings, tiny glasses of orange juice that only held one sip of orange juice, but you had to have as soon as you woke up. Little bowls of nuts everywhere in case you needed a snack. The Easter Bunny, gingerbread houses with wafer shingles, Necco wafer shingles, that I, when I was very little, put on incorrectly. And Grandpa, being the architect he is, told me I had to restart because the water would get in if I didn't place them correctly. And I'll never forget that. Anytime I see shingles, that's what I think of my grandpa. Mai Tais, Jose Cuervo pre-made margarita in the big plastic jug. Chardonnay with ice in it. Specifically, Mazagines and the Marotte. 60 Minutes, Blue Planet, and Good Morning America. Beanie Babies. Hot dogs from the microwave. Char Siu Chow Fun dry style. Krusty's pancakes in all kinds of shapes. The Golden Gate Bridge. College football, especially the Cal Bears. Strawberry jam. The piano. And Formula One. I didn't originally have anything planned to say, but listening to other people talk reminded me of a story. I live with Cade in Orlando, Florida, and one of his favorite movies, as is mine, of this year was 28 Years Later. And if you know me, that is a very gory zombie movie. And when he loves movies, he rewatches them when we're home. So we were doing laundry, and he had it on the TV. And it's actually quite a touching story about a son trying to get his mom to a doctor, during this apocalypse. And there's a scene where they're laying down. They're laying down for the night. They're camping out on their way, and the mom leans over to the son and was like, "Is your dad a funny guy?" And he was like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, is he funny when he's around you and it's just the two of you?" He was like, "No, not at all." She was like, "Oh, this reminds me of my dad. He was the most serious guy. He was so serious all the time, but when he was, with just us kids, he was daft." They're English. Completely daft. And I hadn't really cried or grieved that much up until that point. This was after he had passed. And Cade walks in with the basket of laundry, and I'm sobbing. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what happened? Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just, that made me think of my grandfather, because as, many associates here know, he was an amazing professional, and so well respected. But when I think of my grandpa, I think of the extending fork that he would extend and reach across the counter and steal his coffee off my plate. And, I struggle even now to think about, I was like, that wouldn't work in the workplace. I can't quite picture what he would do when he was there. Again, as you said, the pancakes in all of the fun shapes, every time we went up, I looked forward to that, and I became the pancake maker of our house after that, and I just feel extreme honor to carry on the legacy, as Kristen and Kyle were talking about, of being someone who creates. If you don't know, the word for my job is a fabricator, which basically means I fabricate things, and that's a variety of things. No one thought it was going to be like fake dead bodies, but it is. I feel pride in that, learning how to sew from my grandmother and, sewed my first pillow with her in the little back closet. And, and then found myself at work and I'm sewing a flag for the top of a Universal Horror Nights stage show. I mean, you can't even see it. It was all the way at the top, and I was like, I sewed that flag. And like, my grandma told me to sew that flag. And I'm extremely lucky to have been surrounded by such creative and supportive people like my grandpa, my grandma, and I'm excited to continue to do that.
Now we've got Ian, and then we have a couple more. We're winding down.
In case you forgot, I'm Ian, the favorite grandson. And I'm not a crier, but we'll see. So yeah, I wasn't originally planning on speaking today. Not because I didn't love my grandparents. In fact, I love them very dearly. But to be honest, I just don't feel like I had a specific story or prominent anecdote that fully speaks to the meaning they had in my life. The more I thought about it though, the more I realized that what I really wanted to express was gratitude. Gratitude for the family they built and for the love that is still here because of them. So rather than trying to force a perfect memory, I just want to say something honest to two people who are still here and alive today. My dad and my aunt. Dad, I don't think I could ever fully explain what you mean to me. You are the foundation of my life. You're the reason I've had the support, confidence, and love to become the person I am. Today is not about you, but when that day comes, when the day comes to think of an antidote to celebrate you, it's going to be difficult to choose from all the incredible memories we share. I know I don't say it enough, but I love you so deeply, and all the greatness in my life, I owe it all to you. I love you. Many of you who are close to us, who are close to our family, know that the past few years has been especially difficult for my dad, my sister, and I. And when everything started to fall apart, my aunt stepped in, offering support in ways that no one could have ever expected or asked for. She became one of the people who made me feel less alone during those moments when I felt completely lost. Thank you for being there for us in the way that you have been. I know you didn't do any of that because you had to. You did it because that's the kind of person you are. And that's the kind of family member you were raised to be. In a way, I feel like my dad and aunt are both reflections of my grandparents, not copies, but continuations. Proof that love doesn't just disappear when someone passes. It keeps moving forward. It keeps moving through the people they raised, the people they shaped, and the people who carry the pieces of them forward. So today, I do want to honor my grandparents. I honor them by being grateful for the family they've created. I honor them by recognizing the love that is still here in this room. And I honor them by saying, while I still can, how deeply I appreciate the people who mean the most to me. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're gonna have Jamie Alcorn, who's gonna talk a little bit about the early years.
Thank you. Well, I was Jamie when Bob and I first met in 4th grade, but by the time I got to college, I thought I better become Jim. And so I'm still Jamie, actually. That's just all right. We were friends and met each other in, I think it was the Redwood grammar school on Redwood Road in Castro Valley. And as I recall, it somehow started around Esterbrook fountain pens. Now, Bob was 6 months older than I, but he was actually a year ahead in school. So the teachers were getting around to getting us to write properly in cursive and, in fact, to use pens. And there happened to be Esterbrook pens that came in, and we decided that this was something that we had to do. But we enjoyed those and the way they worked. And so, one thing led to another, and we would build model airplanes together, and then we would build CO2 cartridge propelled little racing cars that would run down on a string. And one thing led to another, and then it was soapbox derbies. And I entered the soapbox derby 3 times, and so this goes back to 1949 or so. But 1950, I'd run this soapbox derby, but my father was going to go off to Harvard for a year, got a fellowship. So what am I going to do with this soapbox derby that's sitting here in the garage? So I said, Bob, why don't you take this? Well, he took it and did some good with it, and I think finally wound it around a telephone pole. It didn't survive my return, let's just put it that way. Well, I had many opportunities over my life, and which was nice. And one of them, of course, was growing up and having a good friend in Bob. Another of those opportunities, which apparently I missed, I didn't know until it expressed itself tonight. And I had talked to Jenny and discovered it all, 75 years later. Anyway, a missed opportunity. But Bob and I had great times together. I had built a hot rod. My mother had convinced my father that I ought to be able to acquire with my own money the Project Ford V8 32 chassis with a 29 Model 8 Roadster body on it. And,
Wow.
It was a creme de la creme. Oh, thank you. And by the time I turned 16 2 years later, well, it was finally finished and roadable. Well, and so I turned 16, and Bob had already turned 16 a few months before. And as parents might not do nowadays, they allowed us to jump in that thing and head off for 2 weeks in Lake Tahoe. So it was the time of our lives. There we were, 2 guys in Pagers, bleached down the front, starched, Keds tennis shoes, and white t-shirts. I mean, what could be more California than that? California hot rod, and off we went to the teen dances up there, and we really thought we were hot stuff. Great time. Anyway, we came home via, as I recall, Yosemite, and it was just a wonderful big triangular trip. No air conditioning, no anything. We just did it. Talking about Formula One and Laguna Seca and Pebble Beach and those good things. Why, in 1954 and 55, it was actually 55, Bob had a Morris Minor and a wonderful little British car, and we'd pile in it and go down to Carmel. Well, we wanted to go the weekend of the races at Carmel and also the weekend of the concourse. So, not having a lot of shuttles between us, we parked the car on the street in downtown Carmel and trotted off along the beach, cut through someone's yard and got up to the road leading into the hotel there, the Del Monte Lodge, where we could see the races. And that year, the races were around 17-mile drive, and it was very exciting. And there was Phil Hill, and there was all of the famous folks that we'd come to admire. Well, of course, this is 1955, so it's 9 years after the end of the Second World War. So, Bob's driving a Morris Minor, and I'm thinking ahead, and I'm thinking, well, we certainly can't vote for or root for these Porsches and these German cars. We've got to root for the English cars. So, I would root for the MGs and the Jaguars and the Astons and all those good things. And that became something that of my life, quite frankly. So the car enthusiasm kept on, and I always thought I'd like to design cars. And after all of these good things, building models and whatnot, but I certainly didn't want to live in Detroit, being a Californian. So I said, well, maybe we should be architects. That's going to be interesting. And that's what turned out to be what the interest and aptitudes came up in all of the high school tests that our homeroom teacher gave us. And it turned out later I remodeled her house 3 or 4 times. She found out that this kid was interested in architecture, and she decided that I didn't know it at the time, but ours was her first class after graduating from Berkeley, and she'd had an unsuccessful love affair with an architectural student. So here was this kid who was going to go to architectural school. By God, she was going to get him in no matter what. And I remember having to sit and take an English test on a Saturday morning so that I could pass the bonehead English exam to get into Berkeley. Well, Bob and I were taken over to Berkeley. My father worked at the university, and he took us over to talk to Dean Worcester, who was Dean of the College of Architecture. So Dean Worcester said, well, architecture is an interesting profession, and he said, it's been the love of my life, and he said that you will be the first one to know when the economy is going down. However, you'll be the first one to know that the economy is going back up. And you'll be dealing, hopefully, with people who are generally happy. Unlike lawyers who need to hire a professional, nobody needs to hire an architect. So you're a luxury. And it won't be like a doctor who will hire you. You'll be hired because somebody's in need. And that always stuck with me. And so Bob and I went to Berkeley, and he invited me to an SAE event once, and I got to thinking, this is not me. I know it's Bob, but I can't do this. And so I was pretty much a loner at that time, and then we got married and had children and went off to graduate school after graduating in 1961, and Bob had just graduated in 1960, and we came back to the Bay Area, and we were both going from Berkeley to San Francisco to our jobs. Both of us were thinking about building something in the Berkeley Hills, and I think Bob got going a little bit before I did, and then about 63 or 4, I built a house up in the Campus Drive in the Berkeley Hills. But I worked over there for a small firm called Rock, Rice and Watson. Well, it was an interesting firm, and years later, living now in San Diego, La Jolla, and husband and wife would come and stay in a house across the street, and they would be there for a month and a half in the summer, and we had wine with them one afternoon just to be sociable. And I said, well, where did you come from? Well, in the early 60s, this woman said, I worked in a small architectural firm in San Francisco. I said, well, that's interesting. What's the name of it? Oh, Rock, Rice, and Watson. Oh, I said, that's interesting. Her name was Cynthia. Well, everybody was in love with Cynthia. So I would have never recognized her in the world, but there she was. It was, and I tried to get Bob and Diana and this other couple to for us to have a meal at one time, but it never did come off. Anyway, so I'd been at Roma for a year and then had an invitation to join Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. So I said to Bob, I said, there's going to be a vacancy over here at Rock, Rice, and Watson. Why don't you, if you're interested, come and talk to them. Talk to George and Bill. Well, he did, and they did, and you all know the rest. I think he became president of the firm, and the rest is history. So I just want to say that it's been a great experience to know Bob as growing up as a child. We had so many great times together. Flew airplanes out in the hills of Castro Valley, and we set them off, and one was so successful we never did find it. Anyway, life was good in those old days, and they're still good.
Okay, we have one more speaker. We sort of outlined what mom and dad's professional lives were like in the little pamphlet, but Michael Stanton has been with dad through a lot of those times, and so if he would just come up and speak a little bit. Sorry, it's a double whammy funeral, so it's taken a little longer. We're almost.
Lovely. Thank you, Chrissy. I'm going to skip my home run in Little League baseball. I'm going to skip my home run in Little League baseball, although I know you'd like to. I met Bob 50 years ago last month. Came from the East Coast out of architecture school, having worked in Toronto, and went to Roma, which was a hot young firm at the time, having been founded just 8 years before that, and interviewed. I didn't end up working there, but we ended up being professional friends after I got over my initial sort of mild case of hero worship at this guy who seemed to do everything. We became good friends and colleagues. I will say about Bob the obvious, which is the only thing that he cared more about than architecture was his family, his children, his grandchildren, his relationships, his friendship for his wife. After that, next was architecture. And he was the consummate architect. He could draw really well, very articulate, good author, very thoughtful and measured in his comments in front of the public, and very skilled in addressing problems all over the place. Over the decades, we became friends. We worked together on a number of things in the American Institute of Architects, because Bob also believed in the strength architects had to work together as a communal organization. We often are very selfish people, and he didn't believe in that. He inculcated into me that we get more done working as an organization. So both of us spent a lot of time in the American Institute of Architects. Most memorable to me was when we went to Soviet Armenia in 1989. There was an awful earthquake in the Caucasus just earlier that year that had devastated Armenia. And Ron Altun of Los Angeles organized a group of 6 of us to go join him and do an urban design plan for one of the villages that had been completely destroyed. After a very cordial but cool welcome in Moscow by the Soviet architects, shoved our way down across the Caucasus. You could look through the holes in the floorboard of the plane and see the mountains right down there. Two prop to end up to arrive in Yerevan, the capital of Armenia. It was a strange time to be in Yerevan because not only was the people trying to address the hurt and injured and the medical needs of the victims of the earthquake. But there was also a war going on between Nagorno-Karabakh and Armenia, which has happened since then a few times too as well. And the Soviets were patrolling Yerevan quite vigorously to keep the Armenians in check. They would roll their tanks into the Lenin Square in front of the Hotel Armenia every night. So you would know it was time to go to bed when you would hear the tanks go. Well, we ended up working on an urban design plan in conjunction with some very good architects there that was very well received. It put Bob and I together sharing a room in the Hotel Armenia for most of 2 weeks. 2 twin beds, not much hot water, but cockroaches the size of hummingbirds. We survived. The plan was quite well received. Bob was terrific as a lead designer. I was just the third pencil on the team, but made my contributions. Anyway, a couple of things from that trip. When we got back, when we met Maureen and Diana at the airport, the first thing I did was grab Bob's hand and say to our spouses, Bob and I would like to announce our engagement. Which I think is probably the only time I ever saw your mother somewhat flustered. I'm sure you and Kyle have, but I have never seen it until that time. The other thing that happened on the Armenia trip was Bob and I bought the cursed carpets. And in Etchmiadzin, one of the largest cities outside of Yerevan, where the church is centered, we bought rugs that were handmade that were about 2.5 by 4 feet, not unlike Islamic prayer rugs. And we packed them up and took them home. They were the cursed carpets because mine didn't make it home. Somewhere the baggage handlers in Yerevan, Tbilisi, Moscow, Dulles Airport, or San Francisco had taken a liking to it and had relieved me of it. However, Bob's carpet made it home. It made it up to Drury Lane and was sitting in the study, and unfortunately it was there at the time of the fire. Hence the story of the cursed carpets. That was 1991, and the architects of the state at that time, I was the leader of the state association, voted Bob their Lifetime Achievement Award, which we were giving to him in a few months at the Awani in a black tie dinner. And the fire occurred. Bob, as all of you know, was a very measured and prudent businessman. He had a great insurance policy on the house in Drury Lane. Not only did it pay for the rebuilding, but it also paid for personal shoppers that Macy's would supply for replenishing their wardrobes. So Diana and Bob went to meet their personal shopper to replenish the wardrobe about 6 weeks before the meeting was scheduled in Yosemite for the award. And she started talking to Bob, and the nice young lady asked Bob, well, what's your first need? And Bob said to her, I need a tuxedo. I'm told from Diana that the lady smiled and recognized immediately that this was going to be a couple that she would enjoy working with. And in fact, over those 50 years, it certainly was somebody that I admired greatly. We met and worked like that over the hero worship. He was a good friend and a consummate professional.
Okay, guys, we have just a little bit of business left. I think I would love for anybody to say anything, but I'm sure you're starving. So why don't we'll go to lunch and then, start lunch and then we'll have a break and anybody that wants to say anything. So 2 things, on your name tags are your table numbers, and so we can go to tables and we'll start the lunch. But there was one matter that when the end of Dad's life that kind of is a little unresolved. And I was really fortunate to be there with Dad in the very last moments. It was very peaceful, it was quick, and it was as good as you can have that thing be. So the caregiver was with him, and I was in his room holding his hand, and he passed away. And then we were like, what do we do now? And she said, I'll go call the nurse. I'm like, okay. And I looked down, and Dad's wearing a red shirt. I was like, oh no. This might have been what did it. So then they come to take him away, which I'm like, I'm out, not doing this. But they had a very bright blue couch, same color as the tablecloths in the spare bedroom. And so she had Cal pillows. So I said, can you take a couple of these with him? Just put them with him. Counteract the red shirt. And so I was just like, sort of dazed by this whole thing and, sad and everything, obviously. And I called Lisa Quigley and Lori, or we may have texted, whatever it was. And, obviously I'm sad, and I tell her that story. And Lisa says, oh my God, Pat Quigley is standing at those pearly gates with a drink in his hands, ready to give him grief about that red shirt. And so he was very right. And so there was one last thing we got to do. Go Bears.
I thought we were going to do a chant of